full disclosure, I have color-coded notes for this one. Jessica's already judging me. I mean, I'm looking at this massive stack of paper on my desk, and I realize I went a little overboard. But look, welcome to episode 36 of the Joinprop podcast. I'm Ken, and that's Jessica. I am genuinely just fired up today because we're diving into a topic that, honestly, it feels like everybody is shouting about on social media, but basically nobody actually understands the real mechanics of.
I'm looking at your desk right now, and it literally looks like a beautiful mine situation over there. Just absolute chaos with the sticky notes.
Hey, the system works. But seriously, if you were sitting there, even just slightly curious about getting funded, or you keep seeing these 22-year-olds on TikTok flashing massive account balances, this is your reality check. Because for episode 36, we are completely stripping all the hype away. Okay. We've got the raw data, the brutal rule sets, and, I have 4 different colors of highlighters happening, so I'm ready.
Okay, fine. If we are doing this deep dive, we need to set some ground rules immediately, because my head is already spinning just from the phrase two-step prop firm evaluation. It's very gatekeepery.
It is a mouthful.
It sounds like pure finance bro jargon meant to make regular people feel stupid. So for the listener, and honestly for me, you have to strip the ego out of this right now. Zero jargon. What is the actual baseline objective we are looking at here?
Right. Fair enough. Okay, so the absolute baseline goal is survival. Full stop. Because the prop trading industry, it pitches this incredible dream, right? You pay a couple $100 for a fee, you pass a trading test on a demo account, and suddenly they hand you the keys to $100,000.
Or $200,000.
Yeah. Exactly. $200,000 in live capital. You trade it, and you get to keep 80, maybe 90% of the profits. It sounds like a total cheat code for life. But the evaluation, this two-step process, that is the moat around the castle, they are testing to see if you can actually generate a profit, yes, but far more importantly, they are stress testing if you can manage risk before they actually put their own neck on the line.
Okay, so it's basically a test, like a commercial driver's test, but for deploying capital.
Basically, yeah. Step 1 is the challenge phase 1. Step 2 is verification phase 2. You have to hit very specific profit targets over a certain amount of time without blowing the account past a strict loss limit.
And I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, but the reason I have so many notes and highlighters is because, well, let me just hit you with the key stat right out of the gate. Across the industry, only about 5 to 10% of traders actually pass these evaluations.
Wait, what? 5 to 10%? That feels like a scam.
It's not a scam. I'm not saying illegal, I'm saying it fundamentally feels like one. If you have a business model where you charge an upfront fee and you intrinsically know that 95% of your customers are going to fail, the firm just pockets those test fees. How is that not a predatory setup?
Because you're assuming everyone taking the test has actually spent time learning how to trade. They haven't.
But 95%, if 95% of people fail their driving test, you'd say the DMV was just farming application fees.
No, but you've got people walking in off the street who just watched a YouTube video on smart money concepts, and they think they're hedge fund managers. The barrier to entry absolutely has to be brutal because on the other side of this test, the firm is risking real live capital. If they lower the bar and let gamblers through, the firm literally goes bankrupt paying out on blown live accounts. Mm-hmm. It's an audition. It's not a casino.
But look at the conflict of interest here. If the firm knows, like structurally knows, that 90 to 95% of people are just going to throw their money into a wood chipper, they are building a revenue model completely reliant on retail failure. They don't even need successful traders if they're making millions on failed evaluations.
They're building a revenue model on human nature. There's a huge difference. The rules of the evaluation are entirely transparent. Before you pay a single dollar, you know exactly what the profit target is. You know exactly what the drawdown limit is, down to the penny. The firms aren't secretly moving the goalposts in the middle of the night.
So you're saying it's the user's fault?
I'm saying the trap isn't the firm. The trap is the trader's own lack of discipline. The industry data, I have it right here in the source material, it clearly shows that people aren't failing because they don't understand where the market is going. They are failing because they completely self-destruct under pressure.
I mean, I still think there is a massive ethical gray area in selling hope to people you know will fail, but fine. Let's look at the mechanics. What are these totally transparent rules that everyone is supposedly just too weak-willed to follow?
Okay, so let's look at a standard two-step model. Phase 1, the challenge. Usually the firm wants you to hit an 8 to 10% profit target. So say you buy a $100,000 evaluation account, you need to make $8,000. Phase 2, the verification, the target drops. They usually only ask for 5% profit to prove the first phase wasn't a fluke.
Right, so phase two is literally asking for less. It's an easier target.
Mathematically, yes. But here's the paradox. Despite asking for almost half the profit, phase 2 actually has a higher failure rate.
Wait, the easier phase is the one that kills people.
Yes, it's purely psychological. And this is why I get so defensive when you throw the word scam around. Because phase 2 should mathematically be a layup compared to phase 1. But what actually happens in the real world? Your trader grinds it out. They clear that first hurdle, right? They hit the 8%.
And they get cocky.
Exactly. They get this massive, overwhelming rush of dopamine. They feel invincible. They think, I am a genius. I have figured out the algorithmic matrix of the market. So they go into phase 2, and instead of sticking to the boring, methodical, risk-averse system that just got them through phase 1,
They just lose their minds.
they get sloppy, they relax their rules, or, even worse, they smell the finish line.
the finish line, like realizing they are only 5% away from actual withdrawable cash.
Precisely. They realize they are just a few good trades away from a funded account, so they start sizing up. They start taking bigger, unnecessary risks to try and pass phase 2 in like 3 days instead of 3 weeks, and the discipline just evaporates right before they cross the tape. The pressure of being almost funded completely breaks their mental framework.
Okay, I have to admit, that is actually fascinating. So it's not the market beating them, it's the expectation of the money. They start spending the payout in their heads before they've even finished the test.
100%. Which naturally brings up the actual mechanics of how these accounts die.
Yeah.
Because it's not just a vague, oh, they got greedy and made a bad trade. There is a specific silent killer in the data. Position sizing.
Position sizing, like how big your trade is.
Right.
Yeah.
According to the source, up to 90% of evaluation failures, 90% are blamed purely on poor position sizing alone.
90%. 90. I need a second. How can something that sounds like basic arithmetic account for 90% of the failures? I mean, I thought trading was all about predicting if the euro is going up or down.
Because people do not respect the math. They respect their own ego. Most retail traders think trading is entirely about direction, like, oh, inflation is up, the dollar is going to drop, I'll hit sell. But prop firms fundamentally do not care if you're right. They only care if you can survive being wrong.
Survive being wrong. Okay, so how tight are the limits?
Incredibly tight. The industry standard daily loss limit is usually strictly capped at 5%. The overall maximum drawdown, the most you can lose total, is usually 10 to 12%.
Okay, pause. Translate that for me into real dollars. Walk me through a concrete scenario because percentages start to blur together in my head.
Okay, let's use a flat 100 grand. You buy a $100,000 evaluation account. The overall max drawdown is 10%. That means if your account balance ever, at any millisecond, drops below $90,000, so you are in the hole for 10 grand total, you lose the account. They lock it. You are out. Hard stop.
10 grand. Okay, that feels like a decent amount of wiggle room, honestly.
It is. And the daily loss limit is 5%. So if your floating or closed losses hit 5 grand in a single 24-hour period, you're also instantly locked out. Now, here is where the math of position sizing comes in. Let's talk about the submarine analogy, because this is the best way to visualize it.
Okay, lay on me.
Think of that 10% max drawdown as the structural hull of a submarine. If you follow the golden rule of professional trading, you are risking only 1% of your account per trade.
Which on 100 grand would be $1,000.
Exactly, $1,000. That 1% risk is like taking a tiny dent to the submarine's hull. If you have a predefined stop loss, and you risk exactly 1% every single time you enter the market, you can eat 10 straight losses in a row. 10 trades completely blowing up in your face over days or weeks, and you are still alive in the evaluation.
Wow.
The submarine is dented, it looks terrible, but it hasn't imploded. You haven't breached the 10% maximum drawdown.
Okay, when you put it like that, 10 losses in a row is a statistically massive losing streak. Like, you'd have to be trading completely inverted, having a historically cursed week to get it wrong 10 times consecutively.
Right. If you are sizing your positions correctly, it is actually quite mathematically difficult to blow an evaluation account quickly.
Yeah.
But that's not what retail traders do. They don't risk 1%. They get impatient. They want to hit the 8% target today, so they risk 3% on a trade. Then they lose.
Boom, 3 grand gone.
Boom, huge dent in the hull. Now they are down $3,000. They start panicking because they are suddenly dangerously close to the 5,000 daily limit. So what do? They take a massive 4% risk trade to try and make it all back in one single shot.
And they hit the 5% daily limit on that second trade, and the submarine implodes.
Implodes instantly. Done. Account breached. And that's exactly why position sizing is the ultimate defense mechanism. The source material outlines this formula. It's account size multiplied by risk percentage divided by stop-loss distance in pips. But honestly, you don't even need to be able to recite the formula off the top of your head if you just understand the core concept.
Which is just defining the risk.
Exactly. If you are not explicitly calculating and defining your dollar risk before you click the buy or sell button, you are the 90%. You are the statistic feeding the firm's revenue model.
Ugh. It's just so incredibly boring, though. Like, this is the thing. Everyone on Twitter wants to talk about algorithmic divergence and Fibonacci retracements and predicting the macroeconomy like they're the next George Soros. But this deep dive basically proves that trading is not about offense at all. It's entirely about playing defense.
It is 100% defense, which naturally brings up how you actually enforce that defense, right? Because clearly, left to our own devices, human beings are just blowing up $100,000 accounts for sport. So the source details this four-pillar framework, which is essentially the structural antidote to that massive failure rate.
Well, if position sizing is the submarine hull, how do you actually keep yourself from willingly steering the submarine into an underwater mountain? Lay out the pillars.
Okay, pillar 1 is exactly what we just hammered on, predefined risk parameters. But they take it further. The strict rule is 0.5 to 1% risk per trade, not 2%. Definitely not 5%, always under 1%. And crucially, an absolute self-imposed daily loss limit that you set for yourself at 1 to 2%.
Wait, why would I artificially set my own daily limit at 1 or 2% if the prop firm explicitly allows me to lose up to 5% in a day? That seems like hobbling yourself.
It's a psychological buffer.
Yeah.
Look, if you hit the firm's 5% limit, your account is permanently deleted. If you set a personal unbreakable rule to close your laptop and walk away at a 2% loss, you still have an account tomorrow. You haven't triggered the firm's tripwire. You live to trade another day.
Okay, I see that. It's like putting up your own guardrails before you reach the actual cliff edge.
Exactly. So that's pillar 1. Pillar 2 is session-based windows. This means rigidly defining when you are allowed to trade and when you absolutely have to physically walk away from the screens. The source specifically highlights the London and New York session overlap.
Because of the liquidity. Like, that's when the institutional money is awake and moving things.
Yeah, maximum liquidity and volatility. If you are trading the euro against the dollar, it's moving during the London session. If you trade U.S. indices like the NASDAQ, they start ripping right at 9:30 a.m. Eastern for the New York Open. If you are sitting there at 3 p.m. in the afternoon staring at a 1-minute chart, trying to force a setup when the market is dead and chopping sideways, you're just inviting a completely unnecessary loss. You are manufacturing a trade out of boredom.
Which leads right back to the submarine taking unnecessary dents. Okay, that makes sense.
Pillar 3.
Profit target milestones. This is massive for phase 1. The target is 8%. Instead of waking up on Monday morning and staring at that 8% like it's this insurmountable mountain you have to climb by Friday, you break it down into 1 or 2% weekly chunks.
That completely alters the psychology. Saying I need to make 1% this week sounds methodical, achievable. Saying I need to make 8% sounds like I need to pull a rabbit out of a hat and catch a miracle trend. Exactly, it lowers the heart rate. Which sets up pillar 4 perfectly. Psychological checkpoints. And this is where we have to talk about the one bad day rule, because this is the safety net under the safety net.
Okay, I'm bracing myself. What is the one bad day rule?
Never risk more than 3% of your total equity in a single day, ever, under any circumstances. Even if you are risking only 0.5% per trade, if you take a string of losses that total up to 3%, you're done. That creates a massive, comfortable buffer before you ever even sniff the firm's 5% daily drawdown limit.
All right, I can get behind that. It's an extension of the personal guardrails.
Right. But tied directly to that is the 3-loss stop rule.
Yeah.
And this one is non-negotiable in the framework. If you lose 3 consecutive trades in a single session, you physically shut the laptop for the day, no matter what.
Wait, no, hold on. I'm going to push back on that hard.
What? Why? It's basic risk management.
Because if I have a thoroughly back-tested, proven strategy that has, say, a 60% win rate and I hit 3 losses in a row, statistically speaking, I am due for a win. Shutting down after 3 losses goes completely against the mathematical logic of having an edge.
You know, see, you can aggressively disagree with that all you want, but you are assuming you are a robot. You aren't. After 3 consecutive painful losses, you are compromised. You aren't executing your edge anymore. You are revenge trading.
But the math of the strategy does not care about my feelings. If my system has positive expectancy, skipping the 4th trade because of some arbitrary rule might mean I miss the exact winner that covers the previous 3 losses. I'm just saying, from a purely logical, quantitative standpoint, stopping just because you hit a streak is illogical. You're messing with the sample size.
But human beings are fundamentally incapable of cold logic when they're financially bleeding. You are down money. Your heart rate is elevated. You are staring at the chart, getting angry, trying to, force the market to give you your money back. The source material explicitly flags revenge trading as highly destructive. It says immediately entering another trade to get back what was lost is the #1 way people breach their daily drawdown. A mandatory cooling off period is required because your brain has literally been hijacked by your amygdala.
I just think, look, if the strategy is genuinely systematic, the strategy should dictate the entries, not a feelings-based 3 strikes and you're out rule. If a setup appears on the chart, you take it.
If you could actually execute like a machine, sure. But we literally just established 10 minutes ago that 90% of people fail because of emotion and poor sizing. The 3-loss rule is the emergency brake for your ego. By the time you lose 3 trades in a row in a single session, the market conditions have probably shifted anyway. It's probably choppy. It's not behaving the way your strategy needs it to. You need to reset.
Ugh. Fine. I still think it structurally damages the statistical expectancy of a good system, but I don't know. I guess I have to concede that preventing a total 5% account implosion is more important than catching one hypothetical winning trade.
Exactly. Survival first. Always. Now look, all of this risk management assumes you are trading with a prop firm that actually aligns with your trading style. And right now, the industry is a total Wild West. Not all prop firms are built the same.
Right, because looking at the notes you have here, you've got a whole roster of these different companies, FTMO, the 5 rows, Funded Next. Are they really that mechanically different? Don't they all just offer the standard 8% target and 5% drawdown structure?
The profit targets might look similar on the surface, but the underlying rule sets are radically different, and they completely dictate how you have to trade. Let me rattle off some of the stats here. So you have the fivers. They're historically fantastic for swing traders, people who hold trades for days. They have an 8% target for phase 1, 5% for phase 2, but, and this is a massive but, they use a 10% trailing drawdown.
Ugh, a trailing drawdown. So you are basically being punished for winning because the safety net gets pulled up right behind you.
Basically, yes. It means the drawdown limit tracks your highest high water mark. So if your account is at 100 grand, your limit is 90 grand. But if you make 5,000 in profit and the account hits 105,000, your new failure point moves up to 95,000. It is significantly more restrictive when you are in profit because you can't give much back. But the massive upside with the fivers is they have instant funding options and absolutely 0 time limits on their evaluations. You can literally take 6 months to pass phase 1 if you want to trade that slowly.
Okay, well, that removes a ton of the psychological pressure we were just talking about.
Huge pressure relief. Then you have the more standard, middle-of-the-road firms. Funded Next and True Forex funds. They are your classic 8% and 5% targets, 5% max daily loss, 10% max overall, static drawdowns. But they usually require a minimum of 5 trading days.
Meaning, what, you have to physically place trays on at least 5 separate calendar days before they allow you to pass, even if you miraculously hit the 8% target on Monday.
Yes, to prove you actually have a system, and you didn't just throw a lucky, over-leveraged gamble on a CPI news event.
Yes.
Which brings up the absolute biggest controversy in the industry right now, the minimum days rule.
Let me guess, some firms demand a ridiculously long time.
Well, FTMO is considered the gold standard for reliability and payouts, but they demand a minimum of 10 trading days per phase. You cannot pass faster than 2 weeks, basically. But then you compare that to newer firms like E8 Funding and Apex Trader Funding. They demand 0 minimum trading days.
0.
0 days. And I'm not gonna lie, I kind of love the 0-day rule. Because if you have incredible edge and you hit a home run, you can pass immediately. You catch one massive, beautiful trend on gold, hit your 8%, and you are instantly pushed into phase 2.
0 days is a trap. That is literally the most toxic idea I have ever heard in this space.
How is it a trap? It's ultimate freedom. It lets the talented trader dictate their own pace instead of being held back by bureaucracy.
It removes the only speed limit on the highway. We literally just spent 30 minutes talking about how human psychology, impatience, and rushing is exactly what kills 95% of these traders. Removing minimum days just encourages massive over-leveraging, it encourages degenerate casino-style gambling, and it's exactly the kind of behavior that blows accounts.
But if a trader is disciplined, if they actually know what they are doing and they get a great setup, Why should they be punished and forced to take micro trades for 9 more days just to pick a box?
Because they aren't disciplined. We established the baseline fact that they aren't. 95% fail. If you tell a 22-year-old kid he can get access to 100 grand in live funding today, if he just hits an 8% return by 4 p.m., he is going to leverage his entire account on one ridiculous NASDAQ trade. It's literally the casino putting the ATM directly next to the roulette table.
Okay, look, I hear you. I'm not saying there isn't a temptation there, but you can't design the whole system just to protect the lowest common denominator from themselves.
You have to, when the lowest common denominator is 95% of your user base. The source material literally says, I'm looking at the note right in front of you, rushing to hit targets faster is the primary killer of phase 1 accounts. If the firm removes the minimum days, they aren't offering freedom, they are dangling a carrot over a cliff.
Yeah, all right. I mean, look, I'll walk it back slightly. You're not entirely wrong about the temptation aspect. I let the shiny object of instant funding distract me. Quality over quantity and pacing is definitely better for long-term survival. The zero-day thing, honestly, it is probably just a brilliant marketing tool to get impatient, greedy people to pay evaluation fees.
It absolutely is. It is predatory marketing disguised as trader freedom.
Fair enough. I'll concede that. But look, if you aren't trying to gamble at all in 0 days, what is the actual expectation? What is the realistic timeline? Because the data says the typical time to pass a 2-step evaluation is 4 to 8 months. That's roughly 2 to 4 weeks per phase, just grinding it out.
4 to 8 weeks. I feel like for the TikTok generation, or really anyone used to instant gratification, staring at a screen for 2 solid months before you see a single dollar of real profit feels like an absolute eternity.
It does. It feels like a second full-time job that you are paying to do. But patience is the ultimate filter here. The traders who actually survive the 4 to 8 weeks and make it to the funded stage, they don't do it by being market wizards. They have routines that sound agonizingly boring, but they work.
Okay, so take me into the trenches. Give me the boring routines. What does a 4 to 8 month survival plan actually look like on a random Tuesday morning?
It is a total grind. It starts with pre-market prep. Before you even open your charting software, before you look at a single candlestick, you are checking the economic calendar. Is the Federal Reserve Chairman speaking today? Is CPI inflation data dropping at 8:30 a.m.? If there's high-impact news on the docket, you literally sit on your hands. You do not trade. Trading during those massive volatility spikes is just gambling on algorithmic slippage.
Because the market can just instantly gap, jump right past your stop loss, and fill you at a terrible price.
Exactly. You could risk 1% and end up losing 4% because of slippage. So you check the news, you assess the volatility, and you outline the specific narrow trades you are actually willing to take that day. You wait for your session to open. Maybe you're up at 3 a.m. for the London Open, and you wait. And a lot of times, the setup just doesn't happen. You stare at the screen for 4 hours, the market ranges sideways, and you close the laptop having done nothing. That is the reality of the 4 to 8 weeks.
That sounds deeply frustrating. The urge to just click a button to feel like you accomplished something must be overwhelming.
It is. And that's why the most important part of the routine, the part the source says is completely non-negotiable, is the end-of-day review.
Tracking your stats.
Or journaling.
Tracking everything.
Yeah.
Your win rate, your risk-to-reward ratio, your overall system expectancy. You have to treat this evaluation like an audit of a small business, not a video game. And a massive part of that end-of-day review is catching yourself before you fall into the trap of strategy hopping.
Strategy hopping, I'm assuming that means taking a few losses and immediately jumping to a new indicator.
Yeah, exactly. You take 2 losses with a reliable trend-following strategy, you panic, and suddenly you're on YouTube at midnight looking up Best Sequel Scalping Strategy 2026. You change your whole systematic approach mid-evaluation. But inconsistency only breeds inconsistent results. You hit a slump, you adjust your risk down to 0.5%, but you do not scrap the whole system. The source explicitly says if you want to experiment with a new shiny indicator, do it in a free demo account, not during a live evaluation that you paid hard-earned money for. That makes total sense. You wouldn't completely change your entire golf swing mechanics in the middle of a high-stakes tournament just because you sliced one drive.
Precisely. Now, as we wrap up this deep dive, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. Handling failure. Because mathematically, statistically, if you are listening to this right now and you are about to take an evaluation, you are probably going to fail your first try.
That is a brutally cold reality check, but yes, a 5 to 10% pass rate means the overwhelming odds are that you fail. So what happens when you hit that 10% drawdown limit, the submarine implodes and the prop firm locks your account.
You do not immediately buy another one. That is rule number 1. The FAQ section of the source material is super clear on this protocol. If you fail, you have to go back to that trade journal we just talked about. You analyze it for exact, specific rule breaches. Did you oversize your positions? Did you trade during a news event? Did you revenge trade after 3 losses? You have to diagnose the exact mechanism of failure, and then you have to take a mandatory psychological break.
A cooling off period for your wallet and your ego.
Yes, you reset your brain, you adjust the trading plan based on the data, and you retry strategically when you were actually ready, not when you were angry. And here's a little silver lining to all of this punishment. Many of these prop firms, if you eventually pass the evaluation and get to the funded stage, they actually refund your initial evaluation fee on your first real profit payout.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. So if you finally get your act together and get it right, the test was essentially free in retrospect.
Exactly. Which is just another massive reason why it's worth doing it right, protecting your capital, instead of rushing in and blowing 5 evaluation fees in a month trying to get it funded in 0 days.
Okay, honestly, my head is completely full. That was an incredibly dense breakdown.
I told you at the beginning, 4 different color-coded notes. But seriously, if we were pulling high-level takeaways from this, for me, it just keeps coming back to the one bad day rule. The idea that you artificially cap your own daily loss at 3%, so you never even give the prop firm the opportunity to kick you out at 5%, that requires just an absolute monk-like level of self-control.
For me, I am still reeling over the position sizing stat. That 90% failure rate based on sizing alone is going to live in my head rent-free for a long time. The idea that people are losing these opportunities not because they don't understand where the market is going, but simply because they lack the discipline to do basic multiplication on their risk per trade, it's wild.
It is wild. And honestly, it leaves me with this thought, like, building off everything we just went through. If 95% of retail traders fail these evaluations, and their primary cause of death is literally their own psychology, their complete inability to manage risk and delay gratification for 4 to 8 weeks, what does that say about how we approach money in our daily lives outside of the charts? Like, are we all just one bad day away from revenge spending?
Oh my God, revenge spending.
Why?
Like buying a stupidly expensive car you can't afford just because you had a terrible week at work and you want to feel in control?
Exactly. It's the exact same psychological trigger, the exact same emotional hijacking. It's just applied to a $100,000 prop firm account instead of a car dealership.
That is incredibly bleak. Highly accurate, but deeply bleak.
Well, on that cheerful existential note,
Uh-huh.
we're going to wrap this up. Next week, we are diving into something a little less punishing on the psyche, I promise.
I certainly hope so. My brain desperately needs a rest from the submarine analogies.
All right, thanks for hanging out with us for this deep dive. Catch you next time.